As the mayor was speaking, I leaned over to Rudy and I said, I'm not sure I need to go up there. And he leaned back and said, I don't think I need to either. So I'm going to modify some of my comments here. But please, as I'm speaking, keep in mind both sets of videos. Our scholarship winners, and then those students who so bravely put themselves out there. Those students are the students who actually made it. They made it through our system. And sadly, there are a lot who don't. So we want to make sure that we talk to you today about the challenges we have. We have the support of the city. We have the support of folks like we've never had in this city to do the work we're doing on behalf of kids in our town. But it does not make the work any less more difficult, any less more challenging, any less more potentially heartbreaking. So I get the chance to welcome you to Convocation 2013 today, and I can't tell you how amazing it is to see the entire Fresno Unified family under the same roof for the first time in almost a decade. We waited a decade, in part for financial reasons, you know, that whole state takeover and then a bad economy and all the rest of that, and also because I didn't want you to expect me to come out on a Harley. So we've put that to bed. But I do want to say to you, your talent and your enthusiasm is what brings us great excitement for this next school year. And Fresno Unified, I want to humbly thank you for each and every one of you for what you're going to do with your continued dedication to the youth of our city in this upcoming year. It is in, you're going to hear me say, it is in the incredibly small spaces that substantial, critical work will happen to provide better opportunities for our students this year. We have a lot of big things happening, but there are big things that adults we have to manage. We will have a new curriculum with Common Core. There's a lot to do. We will talk a lot more about that as adults, but not today. We have a brand new funding formula that's changed after 40 years in this state. A lot to do for adults, but not for today. We also have a new federal accountability system we're moving to that's going to be better for our students, our staffs, our schools, our communities. It's going to give us more flexibility. It's a big deal for us as adults, but not for today. That stuff will all come. We have the opportunity now in those things I just mentioned to better serve the students that represent our district in high proportions. Students in poverty, English learners, foster youth. Some of you have heard me say this before. A lot of people across our state, region, country, talk about children like that as those kids. We are a district of those kids. They are our children. So in the next few minutes, what I'm going to do is remind you of some significant challenges that we've had, some improvements that we've made, and also, as you saw in the earlier scholarship video, our students, your graduates, can accomplish great things when we pay attention to working with them in the small spaces. We are counting on you. Candidly, they count on you. Their parents count on you. Our mayor counts. Our city council counts on it. Our law enforcement. Everybody is counting on us as the educational institution, 10,000 strong, to work in those small spaces. So what does that really mean? It means a million different things. But it means taking extra time at the end of a school day, 2 to 3 minutes, to check on that kid to make sure he's okay before he takes off. It's a smile to enlighten the kid's day. It's a handshake to a kid who looks a bit out of sorts. We've all seen them. In fact, we see them every day. It's a word of encouragement for a student who's standing alone. It's some really good feedback, specific feedback on a piece of work a student has turned in that they spent a lot of time on. That's working in the small spaces. It's encouragement for one of our kids to try something new and different, because we are a big district with a lot of opportunities for kids. Those are all things in the small spaces. That's what's going to make a difference. So as your leader, as your superintendent, I challenge you to provide opportunities for our students who we know are often underserved, educationally disadvantaged, and they many times don't have a voice, if not have it being uplifted by you. And I'm not talking directly to teachers or administrators, I'm talking to every adult here. All of you have superb relationships with kids. Help lift their voices and help them find who they are in this world. As you saw earlier in the video with some of the data points about our district, second poorest in America. And I know it can be a struggle each and every day as you're dealing with trying to overcome the issues of poverty, broken homes, violence, lack of parental support in your mind, all those things to educate kids. One of those numbers, last year we had 2,400 homeless students. 2,400 homeless students. So take a look around, right? A quarter of our auditorium today, homeless. Pick your high school. Pick our comprehensive high school, any high school in our city. Think of the entire high school population, homeless. Now stop and just think about what that means for a student. And think about the impact of you working in small spaces with one of those students can actually do. Our little Miss Juarez, who you saw from Edison on the screen, phenomenal scholarship video. She overcame unbelievable odds, earned her diploma, earned the scholarship, is on her way to a 4-year degree. It was in small spaces with her mother and also with people at school. Marjorie Mason Center, the entire city worked with her in small spaces to get her where she is now. It's in those small spaces, not the big adult spaces, but those small spaces where kids live, that we make the big change. I'd like you to take a look at some of the pictures on the screen that are going to show up. I have a hard time looking at them over and over. It's bleak, and it's an unfortunate reality for many of our families and students. As I leave our office at Tulare A&M to visit schools in West Fresno, for example, I very, very frequently drive right past this part of town. And it's year after year, week after week, month after month, day after day. Not once have I driven past this part of our town and not been hit with the emotional sledgehammer. Frequently, having to pull the car over to try to get it together. It's unbelievable. So, I want you to pay very close attention to the next sentence that I'm going to give you. Because this is as true as anything that exists in our city and in our school system. The difference between celebrated success and devastating loss in our city sits on a razor's edge. The difference between celebrated success and devastating loss sits on a razor's edge in our city. To illustrate the point, we had a rather odd, unique, and great celebration last year at Wilson Elementary over something our community came together around. And thank you, Wilson, and I'll say it again, we went explicitly to Wilson to show our community our pride and have this celebration with city leaders and FTA leadership and everybody. We went to Wilson because of the phenomenal work they were doing on behalf of kids, what kids were doing with teachers, what families were doing with teachers, what was happening. And right across the street from Wilson Elementary sits Cooper. Cooper. Had I said Cooper Middle School 3 years ago, you would not have heard that, and we all know that honesty, that to be true in this auditorium. Right across the street from Wilson, who is doing phenomenal things, is Cooper, who is now turning itself from the poorest performing middle school in our district into a middle school just pursuing with great energy, doing phenomenal work, pursuing IB designation. And this is the point of me sharing with you two schools sitting across the street from itself doing phenomenal work on behalf of kids, where our staffs just go above and beyond, showing great resiliency and progress. Less than a block away from those two schools where magic was happening, less than a block away last year, we had one of our very own Edison High School students, Marquis Sutton, shot and killed. Right down the street, not even a block. Before he died, as you all read in the paper, he was carried out of the apartment he was shot in by his quote-unquote friends, left him on the concrete, right on the sidewalk to bleed out and die, in hopes that the cops would think it would be a drive-by, instead of the stupidity and idiocy that happened inside that apartment. I say again, celebrated success and devastating loss in our city sits on a razor's edge, even on the same damn street. It sits on a razor's edge in your same schools. When you look at your students, that distance, it's there in your classrooms. It's in your hallways. It's with each and every student. We have to live in that small space if we're going to help our students make the right choices and stay on the right path. And there is nothing I'm saying here today that you don't really know. There is nothing I'm saying here that is easy. And there should be a whole hell of a lot that I'm saying that should scare you a little bit, because I'm not quite sure I know how to do that. We will be with you as you try and dive into living on that razor's edge in those small places. Despite many roadblocks that our students face every day because of what our students are up against, I challenge each and every one of you, not just our teachers again, every single one, including Ms. Reynoso. She doesn't get a pass because she babysat the university president, right? Every single one. We all have to keep the highest expectations for all of our students. And I promise you, we saw it on videos already today. We saw it with Daniel. It's everywhere around us if we pause and look. I promise you, our students will not disappoint you if we keep our expectations high and if we plan, if we work, if we go after trying to be in those small spaces with students, the small spaces between celebrated success and devastating loss. You will create success 9 of 10 times. And I don't care what kind of person you are, that's a hell of a bet to take. And that's a hell of a return. Those small spaces matter. I've been encouraged by a number of folks to share this because I've done it a couple of times, but I've never done it in such a large audience. So I want to share a personal story that may help you understand a little bit more about why I do what I do as a superintendent. I'm in front of the entire Fresno Unified family, and you need to know what drives me now and what has continued to drive me for the last 24 years. After graduate school, I came back to California for a summer without a job. The job I could get was teaching in Chuckawalla Valley State Prison, a men's prison out on the Arizona border. And my job sounded simple enough: help inmates obtain a GED. Sounded simple. Short story is that I was given a class of 34 inmates. No training, and honest to God, they gave me what looked like a garage door opener to put on my belt with a little button on it. That was my security device, and they said, if anything happens, push the button. This is no joke. I swear to God, to this day, there was no battery in that thing as I shook it, right? I got problems with the California Department of Corrections just based on that. But I had no training, so I walk in to do all I know how to do, which is start a relationship, in essence, try to be in the small space with these men. Now, I had just come from student teaching in inner city Boston at Jeremiah Burke High in Dorchester, where in the period of time I was there, kids were shot in the streets the entire time. It was a stunning set of experiences for me, and yet I was still shocked by the class composition I had in that prison classroom. I had 34 inmates, men all, ages 18 to 64. So get a visual picture. 34 men, It's 125 degrees outside in the desert, heavy denim, sitting in a classroom with a swamp cooler that didn't work, and my fake security device. 18 to 64. There were 2 white guys in the class, 18 black, 14 Latino. In conversations with each man, I realized they all had an incredibly fatalistic view of life, like piercing, just a burning fatalistic view of life, because they knew deep in their bones their life wasn't going to change. Even if they got out, they were coming back, and they knew it, and they told me that. And as I got to know each man just a little bit better to try to get at goals, they all said, in some way, shape, or form, all with tears in their eyes as grown men, they told me the reason they're there is they never learned to read. All 34. Not one of them. Not a single man. They couldn't read. Every single one was illiterate. I couldn't understand how a system could fail so poorly, put folks like that out in the street and ask them to fend for themselves. Think about our young kids, kinder, first, second grade, learning to read, that frustration that's on their face when they're trying to get to that breakthrough, and then simply magnify that by adulthood. Think about the embarrassment and the shame. It's got to be crippling. It is crippling. Rather than face that, we'll just do the life of crime. It's a real simple equation. You can't read, life is brutal. There's no other way to talk about that. These individuals end up in a system that just sucks them into a world of crime because, frankly, the world of crime doesn't care if you can read or write. In fact, the world of crime, criminal activity, they bank on the fact that you can't read or write. We have to do more, and we know, sitting in this room today, we know exactly what it is that can change that trajectory for those kids. We know exactly what it is that changes the arc. It is a very simple statement, very hard to do. It is a positive, well-rounded, complete education for every youth in this city. So, far too many kids, not just in our city, but in our great country, are left behind. I believe totally, with every fiber of my being, that it is in the small spaces, working collectively with folks in this room, with your unique talents, skills, desires, and the love that you have to give, that we will make big changes for our students. There are a few things I wanted to highlight before I sit down that are going to systematically create a lot of room for small space work to be done. We started this year, we're going to be serving more than 1,000 kids additionally in preschool classes this year. 1,000 kids. Not 6, not 12, not 28. Over 1,000 kids we're going to be able to have those small smiling faces in our preschool classrooms because our Board of Education made it a priority last year. And it's wonderful that our President of the United States is talking about early childhood, but frankly, I'm ecstatic and I'm proud that our Board of Education and our staff is actually making it happen now and not waiting for somebody else. We also know that our middle schools have become a very, very difficult place for our students as NCLB and other things we've allowed to happen have narrowed curriculum and whatnot. Our board has invested $4 million plus in starting to expand those schedules for students to give them possibilities to start looking at pathways and CTE courses, visual and performing arts and music and all the second language courses, all those things that we believe will create a richer environment for them. At the same time we're doing that, we've created schedules so that departments in our middle schools, the math department and the social science guys and the science team, they can meet together every day as a prep, right? That is not being done by accident. It is being done because we are trying to create opportunities for our people to work in small spaces to benefit our kids. And then finally, I just have to say, as we look at some of the pictures that are going to show up on the screen, there are a lot more opportunities for us to work in small spaces because stuff like this is happening because of our strong community support. Our mayor was chair of our Measure Q campaign, but our community voted with 76% of the vote to support putting resources back into our schools to put better classrooms and better facilities on our campuses for our students, for our teachers, for our staffs, for our communities. And it is happening all across our community, at Bullard High, at Fresno High, at Hoover, at Roosevelt, at Edison. Just with those things I mentioned, there are over 100 portable classrooms that you will never see again. They've been knocked down, destroyed, and taken away. In addition to that kind of stuff and the preschool classrooms we are building and the work that's been done at Rowell and other places, Wilson and Mayfair, I could go on and on, it is worth us pausing right now to say that in addition to that, the Rutherford B. Gaston Senior Middle School is rapidly taking shape on the corner of Martin Luther King and Church in Southwest Fresno. And that situation of busing kids from a community across our city has been a haunting injustice that our Board of Education has finally fixed. And I could not be more proud to be working for this district. Of course, our work, this is not about the superintendent and our team in the district office and even our board governance team and whatnot. It is about the totality of who's sitting here today, all working hand in glove. And it is also about the community folks, you saw some of them on the video, who come to our side to support us, to offer words of wisdom, to offer their resources, to help us put on an event like this that can have us feeling like we've got a shot this year. We're on a roll this year. We have resources to use this year. We can change lives this year. So as we prepare for opening schools, every year I get a chance to go around and I'm on campuses on weekends and checking out trainings and whatnot. And last Friday I was stopped in my tracks. Team was with me. I walked into the middle school redesign team working at Ahwahnee Middle School. And during their training, they referenced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech again. You take a look at the quote on the screen. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Think about that. No time to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. So I'm just going to say it really candidly. Gradualism doesn't save lives. Gradualism doesn't fiercely teach literacy. Gradualism does not intervene in the small spaces between celebrated success and devastating loss. And I insist, I implore, I expect, I don't know how else to say it. I want each and every one of you, as you spend these next couple of days reconvening with your colleagues at your sites, to think deeply about how you are going to help our 70,000 plus students come back to school and help them rise up, help them find their footing, help them find their voice, help them find their being. Fresno Unified this year will be working in small space to make a hell of a big difference for the city of Fresno. Now, you all know I could not be more proud to be your superintendent of schools, but at this point, I have an absolute luxury and a sincere, deep honor to welcome to the Save Mart Center stage the person who I think has helped to shape more about what goes on in urban school systems across America than just about anybody else. He will be very, he's not shy, but he won't talk a lot about it. His new job that he's just taken over is as University President of Medgar Evers College in New York City. He is a friend, a mentor, and one of America's greatest educational minds. I give to you today Dr. Rudy Crew.